Some people don't actually end relationships, they just stop showing up. No conversation, no explanation. They slowly pull back until the relationship only exists as a memory. They don't block you or say goodbye. They just become unavailable in ways you can't argue with. Always busy, always tired, always dealing with something. The relationship doesn't blow up, it just fades away until there's nothing left. And here's the thing, they decided it was over long before you knew anything was wrong. This isn't about ghosting someone after a few dates. This is about letting real relationships slowly fall apart. Family who stops picking up the phone, friends who are always too busy, partners who are there physically but checked out emotionally. The method is always the same. Pull away so gradually that there's never a clear moment to talk about it. It starts small. Texts take longer to get answered. Plans get cancelled. Conversations stay shallow. Each time, there's a good reason. Work is crazy. I'm exhausted. Got a lot going on. None of it is a lie exactly, but together, it's obvious. The relationship is being starved. What makes this work is that it avoids confrontation. If you try to bring it up, there's nothing specific to point at. Your being distant gets answered with, "I'm just busy." "We never talk anymore" gets hit with, "We're talking right now." Every example can be explained away. They haven't broken any rules, they're just unavailable. You're left in an impossible spot. You can feel something's wrong, but you can't prove it. You sense the relationship dying, but you can't pinpoint when it became unfixable. If you push for answers, you risk being told you're overreacting. If you pull back too, you're helping end something you never agreed to end. This works because it doesn't need explaining. A clean break requires explanation. Walking away after a fight means defending why you left. But slowly pulling back? That doesn't create a moment that needs defending. No breakup to explain, no fight to justify, just gradually caring less. People who do this usually aren't trying to be cruel. They're doing it because direct endings are hard. Saying, "I don't want this anymore," invites questions. It opens the door to negotiation, to being convinced to stay, to having to explain exactly what's wrong. Silence doesn't require any of that. It's a decision that never has to be said out loud. The psychology here is about avoiding conflict, but not how you'd think. It's not that they can't handle disagreement. They just don't want to deal with your reaction. They don't want to comfort you while leaving. They don't want to answer, "But why?" over and over. They don't want to be talked into staying when they've already decided to go. There's an exhaustion that comes with direct confrontation. Not just the conversation, but everything around it. Explaining yourself, making them understand, watching someone process rejection in real time, feeling guilty about their pain while causing it. For some people, avoiding all that is worth the moral grey area of leaving without explanation. They'd rather seem flaky than admit rejection. Being busy sounds better than, "I don't want you in my life anymore." Forgetting to respond feels less mean than saying, "I don't want to talk to you." The person pulling away knows exactly what they're doing. They're just letting their actions speak while keeping plausible deniability. Here's what people on the receiving end don't get. The decision was made way earlier than you think. By the time the distance is obvious, they've been done for weeks or months. They're not pulling away because of something recent. They're pulling away because they've already mentally ended things. The relationship is over in their mind, you just haven't been told yet. This creates a weird imbalance. You're experiencing the relationship dying in real time, trying to figure out what went wrong, wondering if you can fix it. They're already living in the aftermath. They've grieved, accepted it, moved on mentally. To them, the withdrawal isn't the crisis, it's what comes after a crisis you never saw. You cycle through explanations. Maybe they're going through something. Maybe they need space. Maybe work is overwhelming. Maybe they're depressed. These thoughts are comforting because they suggest it's temporary, that things will go back to normal once life settles down. But they're not planning to come back. They're just letting your hopeful theories buy them time to get further away. Sometimes people choose this method because there's not enough conflict to justify a real conversation. Nothing terrible happened, the relationship just stopped feeling worth the effort. But you can't end something by saying, "This isn't bad enough to continue." That sounds worse than most breakup reasons. So instead, they let their lack of interest show through lack of participation. There's a difference between a relationship dying from incompatibility and one dying because someone decided it wasn't worth maintaining. The first is mutual, even if sad. The second is one person's choice, disguised as natural drift. The mechanics are precise. First, response times get longer. A text answered in an hour now takes a day, then days, then a week. Each delay gets explained if you ask, but the pattern is clear. Second, they stop initiating. They'll respond when you reach out, but they never start conversations. The relationship only continues because you keep trying. Third, emotional availability disappears. Conversations stay factual, no vulnerability, no depth, no real sharing. They might answer questions, but offer nothing beyond what's asked. They're present in the most minimal way while being completely absent in every way that matters. Fourth, plans become vague. "We should hang out soon" replaces actual scheduling. When you suggest specific plans, there's always a reason it won't work. Too busy, bad timing, something came up. The words suggest interest while the behavior shows the opposite. Fifth, excuses become repetitive. They develop a rotation of standard explanations. Work is crazy, family stuff, not feeling great, tired. Each excuse makes sense alone, but they get recycled so often the pattern becomes obvious. The excuses aren't covering temporary circumstances, they're covering a permanent decision. There's also self-protection happening. Direct endings mean being the villain in someone's story. The person who left, who gave up, who decided the relationship wasn't worth fighting for. Quiet withdrawal avoids that role. If the relationship just fades, no one has to be blamed. It can look like mutual distance, growing apart, life getting busy. They never have to be the bad guy because there was never an official ending. But this doesn't mean they feel nothing. Often they do feel guilty. But the guilt isn't enough to make them stay or explain. They'd rather carry the discomfort of withdrawing than endure a direct conversation. For them, silence is less painful, even if it's more painful for you. The guilt works in a specific way. It's strong enough to make them feel bad, but not strong enough to change their behavior. They can privately acknowledge they're handling this poorly while still handling it poorly. The guilt becomes something they endure, not something that motivates change. Sometimes guilt leads to occasional bursts of responsiveness. They'll have a real conversation or make actual plans. You think things are improving, but these bursts are temporary. They're guilt-driven maintenance, not real reconnection. Within days or weeks, the pattern resumes. These random moments of connection actually make it worse because they prevent you from accepting the relationship is ending. They might convince themselves they're being kind, that a slow fade is gentler than a sudden cut, that it gives you time to adjust, that it avoids unnecessary pain. But this logic falls apart. The slow fade doesn't reduce pain, it spreads it over months. It trades one difficult conversation for dozens of small rejections. It replaces clarity with confusion. The cost becomes clear over time. Relationships that end this way don't get closure. They just exist as unfinished business. You're left with unanswered questions. What went wrong? When did it start? Could you have done something differently? They don't have to face those questions, but they also don't get to resolve them. The relationship just stays in limbo. For some people, that's acceptable. They'd rather have ambiguity than confrontation. They'd rather leave things uncertain than risk the emotional exposure of a real ending. The lack of resolution doesn't bother them like it bothers you. They've made peace with it privately. They don't need your understanding or agreement. Years can pass this way. The relationship exists in a weird, suspended state. Not fully over, but not alive. Occasional contact keeps it technically active, while meaning almost nothing. Birthday texts, holiday messages, social media likes. These small gestures create the appearance of connection while requiring no actual relationship. This is how people protect themselves at your expense. They avoid a difficult conversation. You have to sit with confusion and rejection that never gets named. They get to leave quietly. You have to accept an ending you never agreed to and don't fully understand. What makes this especially hard is how it removes the possibility of repair. If someone says, "This isn't working," there's a chance to address it. If someone pulls away silently, there's nothing to address. By the time the distance is obvious, the decision has been made and carried out. The relationship is functionally over, you just weren't told. You often blame yourself. You review every interaction looking for where you messed up. You wonder if you were too needy, too distant, too much, not enough. You build elaborate theories about what you did wrong. And none of these theories can be confirmed or denied because they won't have the conversation that would provide clarity. This self-blame serves them. It keeps you focused inward instead of questioning their behavior. It transforms their choice into your failure. And because they never explicitly rejected you, you can't even be sure you're not overreacting to nothing. Sometimes they do this because they know you'd fight to keep the relationship. They know there'd be promises to change, efforts to fix things, conversations about what could be different, and they don't want any of that. Not because those efforts wouldn't be genuine, but because they don't want to be convinced to stay in something they've already decided to leave. Other times, it happens because they don't trust themselves to hold their boundary in person. They know that face to face, they might give in to pressure or guilt or your pain. Withdrawing slowly gives them distance before the conversation can happen. By the time anyone tries to talk, they're already too far gone to be pulled back. People who use this method often justify it as kindness. A slow fade is less brutal than a sudden cut. It gives you time to adjust. It avoids painful confrontation. But this ignores what it actually does. It trades their discomfort with confrontation for your prolonged confusion and hurt. It prioritizes their comfort over your right to understand what's happening. There's a calculation happening. They're weighing the discomfort of a difficult conversation against the discomfort of gradually disappearing. They're choosing their emotional comfort over your need for clarity. They're deciding their avoidance matters more than your experience of abandonment. Not everyone who withdraws does it consciously. Some people simply lose interest and stop trying without ever deciding to end things. They're not strategically creating distance, they're just not motivated to maintain contact. The relationship dies from neglect rather than intention, but the effect is the same. You're trying to hold on to something they stopped caring about maintaining. When the withdrawal is unconscious, it can be more damaging. At least intentional withdrawal means the relationship mattered enough to make a decision about. Unconscious drift suggests the relationship wasn't important enough to notice it was dying. There's a particular cruelty in how this method uses normalcy as a weapon. Every cancelled plan is reasonable. Every delayed response has an explanation. Every shallow conversation can be blamed on being tired or distracted. They never do anything obviously wrong. They just stop doing what the relationship needs. Because each individual action seems fine, you can't point to any single moment and say, "This is where you hurt me." The accumulation of small abandonments is harder to name than one big betrayal. This is why people who do this often don't see themselves as having ended anything. In their mind, they didn't break up with anyone. They didn't cut anyone off. They just became less available. You could have reached out more, tried harder, made it easier. They positioned themselves as passive. The relationship ended because it wasn't maintained, not because they chose to stop maintaining it. But withdrawal is a choice. Letting something die is a decision. Even if it's not announced or explained, even if it happens gradually, it's still an action. Not feeding a relationship is a way of killing it. And doing it slowly doesn't make it less intentional, it just makes it harder to identify and address. Some relationships linger this way for years. You keep trying occasionally, hoping for reconnection. They respond just enough to prevent complete severance, but never enough to revive things. Both people stay trapped in this undefined state. You're hoping for repair. They're maintaining just enough contact to avoid officially ending things. They might maintain minimal contact for several reasons. Sometimes it's guilt, they don't want to completely abandon you, even if they don't want a real relationship. Sometimes it's social pressure, cutting you off completely would be noticed by mutual friends or family. Sometimes it's keeping options open, they don't want the relationship, but they don't want to burn the bridge completely. Whatever the reason, this minimal maintenance keeps both people stuck. You can't fully move on because it hasn't officially ended. They can't fully leave because they're still maintaining just enough contact to keep things ambiguous. Neither person gets resolution. Both stay in limbo. Eventually, most people being withdrawn from stop trying. Not because they got answers or closure, but because they got tired. Tired of being the only one reaching out. Tired of one-sided effort. Tired of wondering if they matter. They don't get an ending, they just run out of energy. And when you finally stop, they often feel relieved. The relationship ended without them having to do anything. They just waited until you gave up. This relief is telling. It reveals the withdrawal was intentional, even if not conscious. They wanted the relationship to end, they just didn't want to be the one to end it. So they made themselves unavailable enough that you'd eventually give up. They outsourced the ending to the person they were rejecting. There's a specific type of person who uses this method repeatedly. They have a history of relationships that just faded out. They describe themselves as bad at keeping in touch. They frame it as a personal flaw, something they wish they were better at, but never actually change. This framing lets them avoid responsibility. It wasn't a choice to end the relationship, they're just bad at maintaining relationships. The pattern repeats because acknowledging it as a choice would require changing the behavior. These people often have relationships they do maintain, close friends they see regularly, family they stay in contact with, a partner they're engaged with. This proves they're capable of maintaining relationships when they want to. The relationships that fade are the ones they decided weren't worth the effort. But admitting that would mean admitting they chose to let those relationships die. The relationships that get quietly ended this way are often ones that feel obligatory. Old friends they've outgrown but feel they should stay connected to. Family they're supposed to care about but don't feel close to. Colleagues they were friendly with but don't want in their personal life. These relationships feel like burdens, not connections. Sometimes, you eventually confront the situation directly. You send a message saying you've noticed the distance. You ask if something's wrong. You try to address it head on. And they have to make a choice. They can continue the passive approach with vague reassurances that mean nothing. Or they can be honest, which means having the difficult conversation they've been avoiding. Most choose continued vagueness. Everything's fine. I've just been really busy. Work has been crazy. I'm sorry I've been distant. Let's catch up soon. These responses provide temporary relief without changing anything. The pattern continues. The relationship keeps fading. Occasionally, you get angry, You call out the behavior directly. You point out the pattern. You demand honesty. This puts them in an uncomfortable position. They can no longer hide behind vague excuses. They have to either admit what they're doing or double down on lies. But even direct confrontation rarely saves these relationships. By the time you're angry enough to demand honesty, too much damage has been done. The months of confusion and rejection have created resentment. Even if they finally explain, even if they apologize, the relationship has usually crossed into unsalvageable territory. Relationships that die this way leave a specific kind of scar. Not the clean wound of a clear ending, but the messy uncertainty of something never resolved. You carry questions for years. You see them living their life, maintaining other relationships, being present for other people, and you're left wondering why you weren't worth that same presence. Why your relationship was the one that got discarded. They usually don't think about it much. They moved on months or years before it actually ended. They processed it privately and let it go. They might occasionally feel guilty when they see your name or remember a shared experience, but mostly the relationship just exists in the past. Something that was part of their life once but isn't anymore. They don't dwell on how it ended because in their mind it didn't really end, it just faded away. This difference in how both people experience the ending is one of the most significant costs. They have closure because they decided when it was over. You have confusion because you never got to participate in that decision. They moved on cleanly. You're left with unfinished business. And because there was never a real ending, there's no way to find resolution later. The relationship just stays in that undefined space, dead but not officially buried. It ends the same way it faded, with no conversation, no resolution, no mutual understanding of what happened or why. They decided it was over and withdrew. You had to figure it out from the silence, and the space where the relationship used to be just stays empty, undefined, unresolved. No one gets closure, no one gets answers. It just stops. If this helped you understand what you've been experiencing or gave you clarity you needed, consider subscribing. We explore the psychology behind human behavior that often goes unspoken, helping you see what's really happening beneath the surface.